When you think about sports, what comes to mind? Most would say football, baseball, basketball, and many other options, but only a few would think of and include dance. In fact, some people don't believe dance is even a sport at all. This is, however, not true, and dance is just as much of a sport as any of the other traditional sports out there. Here, I'm going to tell you why and how dance is in fact a sport. There are several different forms of dance. These range from ballet, contemporary, jazz, hip-hop, ballroom, etc. However, even though these forms are included in my argument, my primary focus is on competitive dance and drill, which is a highly competitive form of dance conducted by both the state and nation. Before moving any further, with trying to decide whether or not dance is a sport, we should go over what a sport actually is. The Oxford Dictionary defines a sport as an activity involving physical exertion and skill in which an individual or a team competes against each other or others for entertainment. With this in mind, how could dance not be considered a sport? Well, many people believe that dance belongs with the arts and the arts only. While it is true that dance can be an art, it is as much of an art as any other athletics, such as ice skating or rhythmic gymnastics. In an article written by Jason Holt, he brings up that the debate is also inevitably framed in terms of whether sport counts as art, neglecting the equally viable question of whether art in some form, like competitive dance, may also count as sport. To break this down further, many people seek and look for forms of art within sports like football and basketball. So similarly to the previous side, people have found sport within cheerleading and even diving. You can do just the same with competitive dance. Another thing that people tend to argue is that dance isn't as difficult as other forms of athletics. This can be due to the chance of injury, like in football, where you're expecting to be hit or tackled, or the demands of large amounts of physical exertion, such as track and field or swimming. However, dance is much more difficult than it appears. This is due to several different aspects, such as the need for a large amount of stamina, incredible physical strength, and not to mention the ability to get hurt with a simple small mistake. Outside from the physical aspect of sports, many dancers use a similar mentality as other athletes as well. An example of this is through a video on YouTube from the account Royal Opera House, where sport and exercise psychologist Dr. Carla Magin talks about visualization in dance compared to other sports.
The night before the show, I like to visualize my dance.
Research suggests visualization is a very similar process to actually carrying out the movement itself.
A lot of top athletes use imagery in their practice in a kind of day-to-day as well as kind of in competition. An example of one of those athletes is Michael Phelps, the swimmer.
On your mark.
So he started using imagery from a very young age to visualize the actual race.
Go.
What's important to remember is that you use all your different senses. So it's not just about vision, it's also about touch, what you hear, and maybe what you might smell.
I can picture the whole thing in costume, hair and makeup, and I hear the music and I see myself doing it exactly how I want it to go.
As you can see, there are several similarities between dance and other athletic sports, going from the levels of physicality and mentality. To get more of an understanding and opinion on the topic, I interviewed Tiffany Smalley, current studio director of Davis Dance Academy and former dancer.
Good, how are you?
Good. So I just have some questions for you regarding whether if you think dance is a sport or not. And to start, do you think dance is a sport?
I believe it depends on what it is that you're using it for. So in the drill world, I believe that there are very specific rules and dynamics that have been set for those dancers. And I believe that absolutely in that field, it is 100% a sport. They have guidelines they have to go on, rules that they have to follow, things that have been set that have to be in their dances, and judges that are judging them. So if you take all of that, it's the same as if you were watching cheerleaders or basketball players. They all have to follow by those rules as well. So I think that there's two ways that you can look at dance. I think absolutely it can be used as a sport, and I think that it absolutely also can be more of in the fine arts department. So those are my thoughts on that.
Do you think as a sport, dance deserves more recognition?
Yes, I do, because it is extremely hard and taxing on the bodies. There's a lot of mental discipline that goes into it. I think sometimes it gets overshadowed and people think that it's not as difficult as some of these other sports that are out there, when in fact, I think it is absolutely just as difficult, if not more difficult.
Why do you think other people don't believe dance is considered a sport?
So I think their take on things could be maybe based on what they've seen, you know? So I think that that's a large part of it probably.
With all that being said, dance is just as much of a sport as anything else. I think that over time it is slowly getting the recognition it deserves, although there are still many people out there who would disagree that dance is an athletic sport. I hope that with what I have said helped you to see the potential dance really has, so that you too can appreciate all that goes into it as much as I do.